Well, welcome. With the national election coming right up on our heels, we're going to take a look at the world from a conservative view tonight. We'll start with the introductions.
Hello, my name is Chris Wilson, currently serve on the Milford School Committee and Milford Planning Board.
Ed Bertarelli, member of the Republican Town Committee and on the Library Board, Geriatric Authority, and Housing Authority.
That's all?
Yes.
Where do you want to start tonight?
Well, we'll start with the elections just one day under 2 weeks away. So we're doing October 23rd, so roughly 2 weeks from now, the election will start. We're not sure when the final winner will be tallied, but it's become very
Can
interesting.
it get any closer?
No, I think you're going to see that the races in the future are going to be similar to this. Obviously, Chris said we hadn't really spoken since Biden withdrew from the race. I'm curious. I have a scenario which admittedly is a biased one through conservative glasses, but it's amazing that in 2023 it was reported today that President Biden was already not with it. And at fundraisers, he was very obviously repeating stories, making remarks or whatever they were, just way out of line. So it's interesting that all that time, all his supporters at the New York Times, CNN, whatever, who, according to them, are geniuses and know everything, never figured out that he was impaired. While that was going on, you had his staff disparaging Kamala Harris because she couldn't do anything at the border. In fact, he assigned her the border, so basically, I think, to sink her career. And the fact that she couldn't keep a chief of staff in her office, she was very difficult to work with. All these rumors were spread out. Then we have the catastrophe of the first debate with President Trump, and within, a day, his defenders became his assassins and got out the knives, finally with Nancy Pelosi visiting. God knows what she said to him. And you also had the Hunter Biden thing weighing down on him because it was apparent that plea deal had gone south. So he withdraws. There's no real honest battle for their nomination. Meanwhile, just at that time, Trump survived an assassination attempt, which people don't, I don't think people, it's a sense of relief maybe for a lot of people, but imagine what had happened if that bullet had been, what we would have been facing, and the Secret Service so neglectful that they almost endangered their own security detail in this. So that happens, they have this rump convention, and she's nominated with no opposition, and all of a sudden she's now St. Joan of Arc or whatever. I mean, she went from...
We're talking about a lot of different things, and we'll continue.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it seems too simplistic to ignore. If you liked the last 4 years, vote for Kamala. If you liked it 4 years before it, vote for Trump.
Well,
isn't that the essence of it?
That's the message that the Democrats don't want to put out. But a lot of common people, regular people, see that. And, one of the things is, in an anti-incumbent mood, she became, even though she's different, she became the incumbent.
Right, yeah, she
Well,
was just
she is the
choice.
incumbent.
Right.
No, I meant like the incumbent president.
Oh,
even though
well,
she
I
isn't.
was to say,
Yeah.
wait a minute, she is the
Yes.
sitting vice president.
Yep.
For a party that's
You
called
wouldn't
the
know that, though.
Democrats,
Yeah.
Democrats, it was the most undemocratic process that put her in the position to
Yes.
run for president.
Isn't that interesting?
Right? It was
Yeah.
just she was appointed.
Yeah.
She wasn't. There was no pre-election process to put her there.
Nope.
So I think that's kind of
But
when you look at it from
regardless,
that standpoint.
Chris, if there had been a process followed, the Democratic Party couldn't turn their back on her.
Well, that was
right.
You're going to turn your back on the first colored woman who has a chance at the presidency?
No, but I think that it would have been nice to see her being challenged in a primary.
Well, again, she was challenged.
She was.
Wasn't she trying to be the Democratic nominee for
She
president?
got one vote.
Well, I'm
She
just
spent
saying,
millions of dollars
Yeah.
to get one vote.
Right.
It's like Bloomberg.
Right.
Yeah.
But
when Biden was running, she was challenging him back then.
right.
Yes, and she was very nasty to him at the first debate, as
Yeah.
you remember. She called him all sorts of names. The thing, though, Al and Chris, is when you play identity politics and you get hoisted by your own petard, is the old word, because if you're screaming racism everywhere, they could no way deny her the nomination, because when that's one of the cards that's always played, it would be racist to deny a woman of color the nomination, and a woman, period. So that would be one thing. But just to go back a bit, so now we have the situation where she comes out and there's a surge for her because, I mean, Trump was the president. She's someone new, and there's a sense of relief that it's not Biden.
Right.
Let's put it that
Well,
way.
everybody thought she was going to be Biden 2.0. And
So, but then,
well, for all intents and purposes, that's what I
then
see.
they asked her questions, just like Al's hinting at. Well, what would you do differently than
Yeah.
President? Nothing.
Nothing.
What would you?
Right.
What about the border? Oh, it's fine. Every question was a failure.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so,
But again, what hit
Yeah.
me was, I'm not Joe Biden. Okay,
prove it.
I have my own way. What would you do different from Joe Biden?
I can't say.
Yeah, I mean, she said nothing.
Crickets, crickets.
And multiple times she said that.
Yeah. She
You know,
was
so
given.
it's not. It wasn't like she just
Yeah.
said it one
Yeah.
time.
And it isn't like
she's just trying to play nice.
Yeah.
But she hasn't
Yeah. Yeah.
said, like, listen, as
Yeah.
vice president, I had different views, but I was a vice president.
Yes.
If in this situation, this is what I would do differently. And for whatever reason, she has not said
see, I
that.
would
Is she
respect
not
that.
confident?
I would
Yeah,
respect
but
her
we didn't
saying,
hear it.
Right. We don't
I
hear
was
that.
vice president through loyalty to the party, to loyalty
Okay.
to my president.
Right.
I'm not going to undermine his efforts.
Correct.
But she
Right.
didn't
But
even say that.
I haven't heard one thing that
Well, it's
says,
a little late.
if I had the gavel,
Yeah.
if I had the magic wand, I would do this.
Yeah. Well, again.
I feel like she's starting to move that way
Yeah,
a
but
little
so-
bit, but very, very
It's
like
late.
little steps.
the-
right,
the-
yeah.
like the-
and more reactive to
But it's
Trump
more like
policies.
fracking.
Right.
For how long the administration has been against oil production.
Right.
Right?
Done everything
I
in
mean,
their power.
I heard, well, we're issuing leases, but how about the drilling permits? Oh, well,
They're lying
who's
about it.
who's going to lease land if you can't get a drilling permit?
Yeah.
A fool.
So all of a sudden, you go from being an energy independent exporter to all of a sudden watching that revenue go away, and
And then say you're going to take oil in from Venezuela,
yeah,
which is
Right.
horrific.
And I looked at that as soon as Biden took office. That graph that you saw for oil production dropped significantly.
When he
It
got that,
dropped. Now it has slowly
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back.
yeah.
So that everybody's saying, well, it has increased. It's doing better. Well, yeah, but when you go to the lowest of low points on the graph,
That's
it's very easy to
it's a
build
fantasy.
it back up.
It's a
well,
fantasy.
it's like inflation when they're talking about we've put steps into place that's dropped the inflation from 9% to 3%. But wait a minute, when you took over, it was 1.7.
Again,
Right.
the Beltway speaks in their baloney. And the point is, most people out there today who are not in the elite, the media elite, that could be the conservative elite, which there aren't many, or the liberal elite in the media, which dominate, don't go grocery shopping. They don't buy gas. They don't face all these things. And when you go and your grocery bill went from $300 to $600 to feed a family, you basically get from the liberals, well, that's your problem, you have a family. So, in the same way with the immigration problem. I mean, just recently, jump ahead, I mean, Vice President Vance, the minute he was picked, one commentator said he was, quote, weird. Within one day, every mouthpiece in the media called him weird. Well, if he's weird, he's also brilliant weird, because
Yeah.
he did an interview with Martha Raddatz, as you saw, and she actually said, well, it's only several apartment buildings in Aurora that have been taken over
by
by
the
Venezuelan
Venezuelans.
gangs. Several. And he goes, Martha, are you listening to yourself? And she's like, so when you see this today, it's you know that in the next 2 weeks they're going to throw everything they can at Trump. I mean, we have an advisor today come out and talks about his relationship. He likes Hitler's generals. So here's the president, Trump, whose own daughter converted to Judaism to marry Jared Kushner. So obviously he's a Nazi, I guess. So I mean, so it has to be.
Yeah.
So we get to this.
But Ed, I'll disagree with you. What else can they throw at him?
No, what I'm saying is next it's going to be he's an alien. He's
Okay, I was going to say,
yeah,
I think at this point they've thrown everything in the world at the guy.
yeah.
Right.
He appeared at McDonald's. Someone said he walked out without pay. I mean, they've got every lie in the world. He walked
Well,
out
that
without
was
paying.
AOA CLMNOP,
Well, that
where she got
Well,
up and said, he's insulting us by going to McDonald's.
Unbelievable. Right.
And then-
anything they can throw at him. Right?
Then they came back and said, no, this guy actually likes McDonald's food.
Yeah.
He eats McDonald's food all the
he's
time.
drinking diet. His diet's one of the worst of anyone. I mean, he's literally eating McDonald's and Diet Cokes
Diet
and
Coke.
French fries.
Drinking, yep.
But you sit there and say, it was brilliant to show him in front of a fry cooker like a
Yeah.
working person.
Could you imagine getting your order and you're in the suburbs of there and the ex-president's giving you your order and you're like,
Yeah, the ex-president looks and says, do you want fries with
Fries
that?
Exactly.
then he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers game and he's in his box and he starts chanting
The
USA.
chant.
The whole stadium and the networks cut it off.
Cut it off. Exactly.
Because again, the thought process within the media, if I'm not want to jinx him, but if he should win an election night, I want to see the captions of the reporters crying like they did in 2016, including Martha Raddatz.
Right. And the thing, right? It's not a vote against the Republican Party. It's just a vote against Trump. People they pinpointing
Yes.
against him, and it's not even about policy. It's not even about making things better economically
No.
or any other aspects of his
They hate
policies.
Trump.
But
it's not a policy-driven
There's a
election.
lot of
It's
people
hate
out there,
towards
in
him.
my opinion, who don't like Trump.
Yeah.
But
Period. But they certainly like the outcome of his administration.
Exactly.
no one's
Yeah.
saying you want to go and
Right.
have drinks with him.
Yeah, someone just
No.
said, right, yeah, I'm not going to sit down and have dinner with the guy, right?
Yeah.
But I like his
Yeah.
policies
Now,
that
yeah.
are going to make my day-to-day
Yeah.
living better.
Now,
So
And
I'm
that was
okay
the
with
whole
that.
thing with
And-
Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
You had a candidate that people said, I like her.
I voted
Right.
for Nikki Haley in the primary.
I did
Right.
too.
Yep.
You sat
Yep.
there and said,
Yep.
I like her.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like her policies.
Policies. Correct.
Or
Yeah.
her proposed policies.
Yeah.
With Trump, I think it's the comparison to saying, okay, we had inflation at 1.7%, it went up
Yep.
to 9. Now, there's been no deflation.
No.
So those prices that went up,
Are never coming down.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No.
they came up with the
Yeah.
silly term shrinkflation, where all of a sudden you get a candy bar
Again.
and
Oh, it's a, yeah.
it's two-thirds
Yeah.
the size of what it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
or a bag of potato
Yeah.
chips that's half full.
Well, again, but not to defend the again, when the Democrats come out, they want to attack the people who produce our food, but the costs of everything.
Right.
Just build an addition, build a kitchen, build anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the price of gas and diesel, where everything has to be passed
Exactly.
on because no one is in business to lose money.
Well, it goes right back to opening up for those fossil fuels, right?
Yeah.
America lives on diesel that trucks everything
but-
around this country. So now, will it slowly come back? Sure, I don't disagree there. But you got to start someplace, right?
Well,
and that is going
Yeah.
to be the
And-
cost
and-
of moving
and-
goods around
and-
this
and
country.
I would like to know from
Yeah.
Trump what the true cost that this administration has spent for 4 years, billions of dollars on futile things for electric vehicles. They have passed all sorts of rebates, and they've even incentivized ads on television for people who are never in their million years going to buy electric. But to get to the way it's happened in the last month, there's a site that I use and I recommend to the viewers, realclearpolitics.com. And it's an amalgam of articles, opinion pieces, and polling. And it's down the middle. And within the last 3 weeks, there's been a dramatic shift in the swing states, because all we're talking about are the swing states. And
You're
those
talking
would be,
about 6 states.
that would
that's
be,
gonna-
yeah.
that
So
will
again, you
determine,
could vary on them, but it will be, out west would be Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd have the Rust Belt of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
Correct.
So no offense to them. And then you'd have North Carolina and Georgia. Okay, so those are the ones that are in play in a sense. You can talk about Nevada maybe, but these are the key ones. And
Well, the
each-
only reason we see any political ads on our televisions is New Hampshire.
Yeah, and that is
New
that's
Hampshire
even
governor
Because
race.
I can't imagine
yeah.
any politician spending any money trying to influence
no,
Massachusetts.
we're irrelevant.
We're
And,
going to be blue.
right.
End of story.
Yeah.
How blue we go doesn't really matter.
No,
It's
right,
more
no.
of
It's
a.
still
no.
always over 50%.
Yeah. So those are the areas, and each of the states, particularly Arizona and Georgia, Trump is with the early voting, whatever. The dynamics show a very strong. In Arizona, because of immigration from Mexico and illegal immigration, and so on. So that remains Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. So
But look at the change. It used to be that the write-in votes, or not write-in, the absentee ballots and the early voting ballots, the mail-ins, were significantly higher by
for the
Democrats.
yes.
And I'm hearing, I don't know if it's
Yes.
true, but that's flipped now.
Well, it's even, which means it's because on election day Republicans vote as well. So what Trump has done, one of his things opening his mouth years ago, which is one of my bones with him, is you want to encourage anyone to vote any way they can.
Right.
And to say they have to come on election day, fine. But the question is, why not use, like in Florida, for example? Florida, unlike Massachusetts, and Florida's got over double the population of Massachusetts now. It's got 30 electoral votes, and we have 10. To give you an idea. So triple. Their vote will be tallied in an hour because the early votes are tabulated and they're stored. The people who vote on election day, they're tabulated as they're cast, and then they have a few stray votes and they announce the results. So you're going to see, as you go by closing, you have the East Coast, the Central Time, and then you'll have Rocky Mountain states like Arizona and Nevada and so on. So as far as the swing states, which is really all we need to talk about, Trump is ahead in most of them. Now, whether that will stay, but it's whatever it's maybe the undecideds or whatever it is that shifted it.
Right.
But it's within,
It's polls.
when you look at it, number one, it's polls, but two, when they talk about Trump is leading by 2%, and the margin of error is 3%.
yeah, but
Right.
yeah.
It is.
But what they do is they're even now more sophisticated that they found in a state like Wisconsin, in the last two times Trump ran, one time he was underestimated by 8%, and another time he was underestimated by 6%.
Well, I think it's true.
So the same polls are done in Wisconsin. So if they say he's 1% ahead, given the historic overperformance, what is he? In other words, they're trying to get into the undergrowth of what the polls are all
Well, I
about.
think it's
Yeah.
true when they say that a lot of people who are going to vote for Trump
Don't
don't want to admit it.
Right.
They,
All it does is it causes an argument, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is-
my family has different beliefs, right?
Yeah,
You
why
just
would-
don't talk about it because
Yeah.
we know that certain people in my family
Yeah.
are going to vote Trump and certain people
Yeah.
are going to vote
And by the way,
Harris.
most Republican voters understand the media is largely not in favor of them. So if a pollster is going to call you, why would you tell them anything?
Right.
You might if you're, but when Republicans see and have said in the past, I could go through the whole list. They made Reagan out to be one thing. They made old Bush to be out another. Young Bush, Romney. It isn't a. They've just started on Trump hatred. It's been for years.
but with Trump, it's not predicting. It's looking at history. He was
Right.
there for 4 years.
Yeah.
Do you believe he's going to change it all?
no.
No.
Now, I've seen a big change in Kamala.
Yeah.
The issues like fracking, the border.
I
thought she
I
was
think
the border
change
czar.
more than anything is the fact that you actually see her now.
Yeah.
Right? Well, wait a minute, because for the first 3.5 years, you never saw her.
The mystery is way back why he picked her. He didn't need her, and I think obviously his wife was against it very much because of what she said about him in the first debate when she called him a racist and everything else. And I mean, very vicious performance on her part. Didn't do her any good. But whatever advisor, he could have picked a more qualified vice president. And I think she made the same mistake with this governor because his record is beyond. He's the Bernie Sanders of Minnesota. And I spent time in Minnesota, so I understand the state somewhat. And he's beyond.
But doesn't he fit in? I mean,
He's a
you're
woke.
not running on your track record.
No.
Because if you look at what's happened in Minnesota with the defunding of the police in
Yeah, right.
Minneapolis, I don't know how you stand up and say, I did well and I shepherded my state,
Well, you don't.
Right.
you know?
Especially with all the turmoil that
Yeah,
happened within
yeah.
that state.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can't run on your record.
No.
It's just like the part that's got me stumped is when she comes out and says, I'm going to fix immigration.
Yep.
I'm going to fix
Yeah.
inflation.
Yeah.
I'm going to fit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait a second.
You're
For
going-
3.5 years,
So it was broken. You admit it's broken.
Right.
And
you
you were there.
Wait a minute. Are you going to fix immigration? Or are you going to enforce immigration?
Yeah.
well,
Right. So.
Well, the thing is, what the standard thing, and I hear this at some people who I talk to down the Cape, well, you know, the Democrats proposed this deal last year, and the Republicans vetoed it. And I'm going, well, so the 3 million people already came here, and your deal was baloney, and everyone saw through it. It was just a sop forward. So now, again, let's look literally at the impact in a town like Milford of this uncontrolled illegal immigration. It's and there are, I'm sure, hundreds of, like the Aurora, Colorado. Can you imagine the population there voting what when you have, I mean, Venezuelan gangs who had to have come up, still organized, using their phones or whatever else they do to go in and terrorize people because that's what they do.
Right. And
but
we
think
know.
about, Chris, you know it more than we do. In 2-3 years, Milford's going to feel in our pocketbooks the immigration.
I think we feel it already.
Well, we
No,
feel
but
a
I
little
meant
bit, but I'm
right,
saying
the big
directly,
one.
when
Right,
we
it's-
turn around and say,
Yes.
for 40 years, because you were there when I used to pick on the superintendent, saying, when we built Milford High in 1974, we moved in, there were 220 graduates.
Right.
40 years later, there's 260. That's one net student per year.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, this immigration thing happened in the last 4 years,
Mm.
and we added 400 kids.
Into the whole system. Yeah.
That's a whole
Right.
Brookside.
Yeah.
And now you turn around and say, what are we going to do with the high school? We can't
Yeah.
build a 9 to 12, because as soon as we're done with this high school,
Yeah.
we're going to look at Stacy.
Oh my goodness.
And there's
yeah.
nowhere to expand Stacy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have to add 400 or 500 chairs,
Yep.
Yep.
which now takes the school from what, 200 to 300?
Yes, but if you heard the media in Massachusetts, that's a coincidence. But this is why the problem in the state is as it is, because the Globe and whatever are not covering the real cost of illegal
Ed, what's
immigration.
not going to be a coincidence is it's $80 a million.
No, Al,
If we
Al,
add-
Al, we're not talking about.
Well-
we're talking about what they would say is in Boston or whatever, because they deny there's a problem. Well,
Well, your idea of the coincidence, I take a hammer and I swing it with my foot. All of a sudden, my foot
well,
is hurting.
why don't you invite the editors of the Boston Globe to come out here and do an honest study of the effects of
Right.
immigration, because they prefer to be in denial.
Right.
The
Well,
impacts
the
of it.
killer's going to be if we add, because this school's going to, if it's a 7 to 12,
Yeah.
like what's being considered now,
Right.
That's everybody.
you're talking $300 million.
Probably, yeah. And we're only talking about one aspect of school and education from the immigration population, right? So, I mean, within it, there's the transportation costs,
Yeah.
but then there's the housing costs
Yeah.
and the clothing
It's a
costs.
coincidence.
But
right,
that-
and the food costs, right? So we know that on Fortune Boulevard, there is a hotel that is being utilized for housing of immigration, right? For immigrants, migrants. So, but the way that it is right now, they can't work. So we've got to put a roof over their head. We've got to clothe them and we've got to feed them. Well, who's paying for that? Well, us, the taxpayers, right? We know that. And I think that's the hard part or not the hard part, that's the part that people really got to understand, because we saw Chapter 70 money go down, and
Why did it go down?
Right, well, yeah.
Well, it was
Apparently
simple.
'cause-
They said
apparently
they
'cause
don't
the
have the
revenue's
money.
down,
They
right?
diverted
don't have the
money. They diverted money to-
right? And the Milford taxpayers had to pay more this past year for the school system. So, again, it's hitting people in the pocketbook.
But-
I just don't think that they see it
But-
that way.
yeah, but-
they need to know it's
But as
happening.
soon as this new high school
Yeah.
gets firmed up,
Right,
and you turn around and say, we're gonna increase your taxes, it's $80 a million.
yeah.
You sit there and say, if I have to pay an extra $1,000
Are
or
you kidding
more
me? No,
a
thank you.
year in taxes,
No, thank you.
Right.
well, but Ed, what's the choice?
But the point is that people will basically say, hey, buy.
They
And-
can't. You're
Why?
gonna have, okay.
Yeah. But again, it's Milford's that anomaly where our population is growing,
Al,
where everybody else
Al,
is saying
when
it's
people
decreasing.
don't even know what caused the problem, and this is why the media are so culpable in this. You said, well, people don't know. It's not their fault they don't know. The fact is, it's not being reported as what the real reasons are, because it's being covered up. And there's a reason it's being
But
covered
one
up.
way or another, we're gonna have to come up with the
Well-
interest on, let's say we get half of it paid for by the state.
It'd be more than-
$150 million.
It'd be more than that, I
Right.
think.
And
Yeah, but even at 150, that's 10, 11 million dollars.
again, you're talking only one aspect of it, where again, Chapter 70, which is the state funding to help us out, went down, yet
Yeah.
our population increased.
And by the way,
Right.
But
Our
we're one of the,
need
what
increased.
is it, 5%,
So-
95% of the towns towns and cities in Massachusetts either held steady or went down in student enrollment.
Right.
Milford's one of the 5% that's
yeah,
going
but
up.
the 5% are all related to immigration.
Yes,
Yes.
Well, and the other thing is this, you might pass we're getting into theoreticals, but you might pass a high school at the town meeting. But if it was ever a petition to get it to a vote in the town, it wouldn't pass. Not even, because the school system, as it's developing, doesn't represent.
but Ed, it has
Yeah,
to pass.
the voters.
Oh,
We have to
yeah.
take, because once those kids are in Milford,
Wait a minute,
we
wait a
have
minute,
to
wait a minute,
educate
wait a
them.
minute, it has to pass. Voters have a choice, and it has to be explained to them how this happened. Not that if you vote against it, you're an ignorant person. In other words, it has to be explained to people, period.
You turn around and say,
Okay.
if we don't expand the school, class size is gonna go to 30 plus.
Whoa,
Uh,
I think I had 40 in my class.
Oh, God.
Well, so did you, by the way, in that era.
But, you know,
So,
you turn
yeah.
around and say, you can say, no, we're not going to. But once these families are in Milford, you got 50 families in the old Best Western.
And they're
luckily
the tip
only-
of the iceberg. That's
luckily
nothing.
only
Right,
half,
That's nothing.
Yeah.
half of them are going to Milford schools.
But that's still
The other half
nothing.
are going
Right.
to other towns.
That's nothing.
But we got burnt because we got to pay to truck them to the other towns.
Yeah, but the thing is,
Right.
that is,
And yeah,
that,
we know that transportation costs
yeah, but
is
that's,
just another
that's,
factor.
that's and I've asked the person who knew about this with no names mentioned, that's 8, 9, 10% of the real population that's a problem. Because the others live in the illegal apartments, they live in whatever. And
Yeah.
to get to that one, you know, we have to get to the fact of it, Milford Town Meeting, which was, 2 nights ago, the town meeting voted very strongly to, with the recommendation from the police chief and urging of the police chief, to put in very strong beginning noise ordinances. And coincidental with that is to revive the inspections of housing in Milford, because the gross violations of the housing code, the sanitary code, safety code is endemic in the town. And the absentee landlords basically treat their overcrowding with contempt. I mean, slamming the door in the police chief's face is a real smart move, in quotes.
Right.
So we're in an issue where, for many people, including a lady who sat right behind me at the town meeting, quality of life in the town has declined to a very bad point, because people who are chronically bad actors with noise, trash, and other violations are being allowed to continue. And, you know, they also take up valuable time with the police force and visits, and potentially there could be a situation where an officer or someone could be injured.
Right.
We're
Well,
one
the
step
part
away.
that scares you
So,
is you have a house, a typical Milford split, 120 amps worth of electric coming in, That's designed to handle a kitchen and bedrooms and such.
Right.
The minute these houses are being split into 3 and 4,
Oh, okay.
Right.
all of a sudden you have a full kitchen and 3 mini kitchens.
Exactly.
But you haven't increased the electric.
Right.
So
The
you're running a
service, no.
lot more juice through those wires,
Yeah.
and you're just waiting for a fire.
As I said before, within a baseball throw of town hall, there are a couple of buildings where 20 kids are registered in the school systems in each. And it's impossible, because unless what they're doing is, as we find out,
They're rooming, yeah.
they're renting a room
Yeah.
with a lock on the door, a shared bathroom and kitchen for $1,000 a month, and you add them all together, and the landlord or whoever is subleasing the apartment is making a living on preying on this. So it isn't just the,
Yeah.
it isn't just
And
the,
some of the things that I learned
yeah,
amazed me. It's like, how do you find these illegal sub apartments? And I was told a lot of times it's simple. They ask, like we have trash barrels.
yeah.
So, I mean, I've got one black one and one blue one like
Whatever they
everybody
are, yeah.
else.
Yep.
And there's people calling up saying they need 2 or 3 of each.
Right.
Now, anybody that lives in Milford or uses these monstrous things,
No.
it's hard to fill one up.
It-
To fill 3 up?
No, it requires,
In a single.
yeah, what it
single
requires is,
dwelling.
the drive is also another level, because you're requiring the driver of the trash truck to report this. So he's gotta do a log, and then it's relayed, but there's a certain landlord in Milford, and for obvious reasons we can't mention a name, but he's done for years, he has very sketchy apartments. And, there's one in the corner of West Street and an unnamed street, and it's a disaster. But again, when you engage in this and you pay by the week or pay in cash or however you do it, it's very lucrative when you own 28 or 30 of these things, which the man does. So, but you get to the tipping point is obviously the net effect on the schools and everything else. Which, and and by the way,
Well, but even on the quality of life.
well, we're
if you
just gonna
have
say,
4 mini apartments where there should be 1 house,
Right.
there's 4 to 8 cars
All
that have to
out
be
front.
parked somewhere.
somewhere, yes.
Well, and you heard Chief Tessino, right? He said about going into these places or seeing these places where makeshift walls
Yeah.
and even cabinets that are labeled and locked
Yeah,
with
you
certain
don't
family
blame them,
names
yeah,
on
of
it,
course.
right? So that okay, it's a shared kitchen, but my cabinet is here and
Yeah.
your cabinet is there and it's locked.
Yeah,
and that-
imagine-
so you know that although they may say, well, we're all cousins.
No,
Well, wait a minute. Then why do
Why
you have
the
to
locks?
why do you have to lock up your food for your cousins?
No, it's
right?
people
So,
in very
again,
vulnerable
It's
situations.
very clear. of-
Well,
of
the
what
problem
the effects
is-
are.
There's not enough reasonable priced housing
Oh,
available.
wow, come on now. There's no, that these people, they've made a choice, and they realize it's a business opportunity.
I'm not saying the landlords. Oh, no, Ed, I think those
No,
people
but by
should
the way,
be-
no, even within, it goes down to another level now. It's not just the landlords. But if someone's enterprising enough and rents a house,
Right.
he then subdivides it. The
But that to
landlord
me-
may know or not know, because
Right.
if he's
But
not
that
around.
to me is
Yeah.
part and parcel of landlord. I'm saying
Well,
the
no,
family was-
but this is one person who's figured out that he doesn't even have to live there. He's sort of the other absentee
Yeah.
landlord, except he doesn't own the building. He's like the manager of this disaster.
exactly.
So he rents to 3 families when there should be 1, and he's paying the landlord promptly because he's making some money on it. I mean, it just shows you what ingenuity can do when you really
Exactly.
want to do
And
something.
it-
No,
again, it rolls right back
It's
to
a science.
and it rolls right back to
Yeah.
we've got too many immigrants coming in
Yeah.
freely.
Yeah.
If it flows in at a better rate, at a controlled rate,
Yeah.
with a process, then great. I mean, I'm all for
But the cat's out of the
immigration,
bag
but
here,
the
I
cat's
guess.
out of the bag,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Where
yeah.
now the floodgates are
Yeah,
open,
yeah.
and now we're reactive.
And the other
right?
thing-
we've got overcrowding.
But the
we've
other
got,
thing is,
how
how is it?
specialized
Yeah,
housing.
but how long is it for enough people to say, and it's a danger that is there, is the the regular people who their house is their investment, their major investment, young families living up in precinct 3, 5, 7, wherever, to say, I want out. Because the schools aren't gonna give my kids what they want. They're spending time, all the time on people who have no English, never went to school, whatever. And that affects then the whole Milford's balance sheet, not just balance sheet financially, but emotionally as a quality of
Right.
life in the town, but also financially because we're going to get to the stage where this dramatic, with this free cash and everything that we seem to enjoy all the time. We have our October meeting where we cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. We do the list of things. I mean, some years it was 10 million, some years it's this, some years it's that. Yeah, the candy store was always open in October. And remember, it used to be called the emergency town meeting. Now it's the one where you go in.
Special
Now
town
it's a
meeting.
Yes,
special,
now you
yeah.
go in and ask for your goodies. I like Christmas in October, but
But again, not to beat a dead horse, but we've been lucky.
yes,
16 straight years that we've had, what free cash is surplus.
yes,
Expenses were less than
yes,
what we collected. So we collected too much money. So we take normally about a third of the money, give it back to the taxpayer where it belongs. Take a third, put it in our savings account, stabilization, and take a third and fund one-time capital projects.
yes.
But you turn around and say, the most we've ever had that I can remember is almost $11 million.
Yes.
And we went crazy.
Couple of
And that was because of the federal ARPA and all
yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
But the high school is going to eat up
yeah.
$8 to $10 million.
Well,
Yeah.
again,
At-
when you
at
say
least-
dollars, that you reveal you got another accent, not a Massachusetts accent. I don't know what it is. It sounds New Jersey. Can I say
No.
New Jersey? No, okay, all right.
Born and bred Milford, still here. But you start looking at the fact that the view has always been, we got plenty of money. Milford's been lucky. Compared to all the towns around us,
Right.
we've done very, very well.
Yeah, but
Correct.
Al, you're in a very
But-
privileged position because you have knowledge of this stuff. Okay, and you say it, we understand, we whatever. It's important for the viewers to realize, and they know it the hard way, we have very little media today in the town. We had a daily newspaper that covered the town and the Mendons, the Hopedales, the Uptons, the Uxbridges with local reporters. We had the town crier, which sort of tried to replace the daily news with local coverage. We had a radio station when Ed Thompson was there that covered all the local towns. Today we have none of that. And as I said the other day when I was here, the cable station is one of the few links, but that's limited as well. I mean, our local paper isn't even local anymore. So when you say we know, no, you shouldn't mistake what you know with what the public does, and that's the big problem today. And when you go to a town meeting, people go in. There's no prepping within the media or debates. Like letters to the editor or for and against this thing or that thing. You go in, and a couple of new members have said to me, God, we just come in sort of cold. It's like we get the finance committee report, we've got to sort of jumble that. That's their opinion and whatever. So there's a real lack of knowledge, and I think it's going to be telling when they attempt to sell the idea of a school, saying like when we had Stacy, we had Tom Cullen, who was a master media player. He was able to go to the Daily News at the time, the radio station.
Yeah, but Tom Cullen was a master, but he had media.
But that's what I'm saying. No, we don't have media anymore.
Right.
So
Well, it's social media, so it's a
No,
yeah,
but
but
it's
that's
a
not
different
gonna,
form.
that's
I
not
get
gonna be.
it, but I'm just
It
saying.
hurt
you
when
gotta-
I gave up my Milford Daily News subscription, but I got tired of looking at the local
Well,
news
that's
section
that's what I- yeah.
and seeing Natick.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I kept saying, Natick isn't local
No,
to me.
and that's
I
the
get
thing when you're trying to sell a big ticket item, you need media, and that
Yeah.
isn't.
It's a different push. It's
Yeah,
a different
but
way.
social media today, lies can be put in there, and they're the truth. So that's the
well.
point. And by the way,
regular media is not either.
well, not in cases of where someone's arguing about a
Right.
school or whatever.
Right,
But the
yeah.
point is, in social media is only available to a certain percentage of the population.
I
so
get it.
You
You
You mentioned
automatically.
at
balance,
town
yeah.
meeting, one of the big 45-minute discussions was everybody agreeing that there should be controls on noise,
Yes.
Yeah.
which amazed me because I didn't hear anybody talking against noise. I heard Robbie, our police chief, getting up saying, I need help because right now
Oh my goodness.
the landlords have no repercussions. If
Right.
they're not policing themselves, then, as you said, he went to somebody and the guy said, I don't live in Milford, slammed the door on his face.
We have problems with the housing authority when we have, say, tenants, certain apartments, and some of them are at Luby Avenue. which is assisted housing, and the police department's always been exemplary in helping. But there's a limit as to what they can do because,
Right.
and basically what they're doing is a police log of, the visits and whatever else, and then they help with evictions, they help with whatever. But when you get so much of the police force diverted to being,
Yeah.
to doing this, they also learn because sometimes you get into very sticky situations when you walk to someone's house and you don't know what you're in the middle of. You're in the middle of a family dispute, domestic violence.
Yeah.
What's the noise?
What's creation the noise?
What's the
Yeah,
noise
creating it?
attached
Yeah.
to? Is it attached to something more ominous, or is it just partying? I mean, it's like
Well,
crazy.
We passed
Yeah.
a bylaw change to talk about what do they call them, mini houses? Or
Yes.
Accessory dwelling units.
accessory
Yes.
dwelling units.
Yeah.
ADUs.
Reminds me of that TV show, it says My Tiny House,
Yes, exactly.
because it has to be
Yeah.
less than 900 square feet.
What's that? What's that shed company that's doing? People will be buying those sheds.
Yeah,
the ones that
all
say
the
you're
different
proud
sheds,
to
yeah.
have it in your front yard
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Those shed company. Yeah.
One of them.
What do you think the effect will be?
Well,
Disastrous, but anyway.
you're certainly looking
think
at
so?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to have an effect. There are limited areas in Milford that will be able to accommodate the ADUs without a special permit, right? Because you still have to meet all the building requirements,
Yeah.
offsets, things. Of
Well,
that
I'm just
nature,
thinking
right?
precinct
So,
1, precinct
right.
2. There's no room for a mini
correct.
house.
There's no room for it. You'd still
Well,
have
you've
to
seen
go
triangle
through.
houses built and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah,
else.
well,
so
which is
it's-
true.
Yeah.
Fortune Boulevard can never be developed, I was told when
I
I was
want,
a kid.
you're in one of the leafy elite neighborhoods in town. We won't mention because there'll be drive-bys coming up, but you're in one of the elite leafy suburbs, and I think everyone should have one of his. You've got a nice lot. You could put one right on the hill with a beautiful view, and you'd have a little,
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but that's precinct 8. There's not many houses that have
Oh.
2 acres or whatever
Right.
that they could.
But
It isn't
here's
2 acres.
here's where I'm going to go with this is the fact that you're seeing a character change throughout Milford, right?
Yeah.
The next door neighbor is going to be potentially a migrant family that has moved in, right? Now we're seeing volleyball courts
Oh, my
come
goodness,
up
man.
into people's backyards.
A joke.
And these are North Milford houses. So a North Milford house has the plot
The
to
room.
be able to put up an ADU.
We have a North
With-
Milford?
Yeah.
That's where
Well,
you
I-
are. The
oh,
leafy
yeah, you're
neighborhood.
you're in
South
North
Milford and
yeah.
North Milford.
Yeah.
I never knew Milford was big enough
Well,
to have a North
Listen,
and
that's
South.
I've been here for 20-something years, and that's what everybody called it when I moved here.
Oh, yeah,
so
well, I've
that's
never
why.
heard- I actually never
But
heard of it.
I would see that area. So, although, yes, limited to the ability to build an ADU in precincts 1, 2, downtown districts, that northern side of Milford
Yeah.
that has more.
The University
land.
Street. Yeah, exactly.
Right. The lots are bigger.
Yeah. There you
And
go.
you definitely could see.
You owe it to the social society to build,
right.
according to them.
I don't owe it to my
Yeah.
pocketbook to build
Right.
because Paul Abadanza confirmed, years ago I asked him, I said, what does it cost me for every dollar that Chris Wilson pays in real estate tax? What does it cost me
What do you
to
mean?
deliver service?
Oh, okay.
And he said, $1.80.
Well,
So for residential taxes,
Yep.
for every dollar we collect, it costs us $1.80, which
Yeah.
makes sense
yeah,
because
yeah,
you got 2 kids,
yeah.
$14,000 a kid per year.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
And the average tax
Yeah.
bill in Milford, 6,000. You
Yeah.
can't keep up.
Yeah.
Right.
The only thing that saves us is the dual tax
Dual
rate.
tax.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, to give people an idea of the geography, which I learned when they were tempted to put the fire station at the tank field, okay, rather than by Medway on Birch Street. The tank field is the geographical center of Milford. Now, you would say, oh, no, it can't be, it's too far to the north.
far.
But it isn't, because Milford extends so far above toward Upton and Hopkinton this way.
Right.
So when you realize that, you realize why the new development occurred in that part of town, because a lot of times the land was away from the center, wasn't desirable, but then, builders came in and did what they did. But literally, just about the geographical center of the town is Tank Field, which you're going, well, what about all downtown and whatever? Well, it's more compact, because if you go from Tank Field to the sewer plant, it really isn't, it seems longer because it's more developed, but it isn't.
It isn't.
Yeah, so.
Geographically.
But sewer plants in Hopedale.
Well, no, but it's right on the board, I'm just saying.
I didn't realize though
exactly.
I lived in the center of town.
Yeah, no
you do.
kidding.
Yep.
Well, it's funny because my neighbor, his backyard, my next door neighbor, is on the border of Upton and Milford.
Yes.
We're right at the very
you're right,
farthest
yeah,
edge.
Yep. So, what about the ballot questions? Want to briefly touch those? We've got about 13
Go ahead,
minutes.
pick one.
Wow.
I'll hit MCAS.
Okay.
Since School committee wise. So obviously there's a ballot question. Should we continue to have MCAS as a graduation requirement?
Yes.
So, yes to the ballot question, or yes to my explanation? Because
Well, I mean,
Tell me,
yeah.
in your opinion,
My-
school committee member,
yeah.
well, or in
My-
parent.
Right, in parent. My opinion is that I don't think it should be a graduation requirement. I think that you can get a good education without a one-time test. Do I still think that MCAS should happen throughout the education process? Yes, because it's a great way to kind of evaluate school districts.
Yeah.
I know it's not a perfect system, but we need it.
But is the
not-
ballot, is it a graduation requirement right now?
Right
Yes.
now, it is a graduation requirement. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I just feel like a one-time test to ensure that a student graduates.
Yeah.
When you consider the education process is a multi-year process, I think that it just you
but
should
then
go away with
what
it.
do you
and
say to
just
the people
focus.
who say, then what's the alternative?
Well, I would argue to the other side of that, because one of the reasons I would argue for it is probably a weak reason, but the sponsors of it are the Massachusetts Teachers Association. And that voided any interest I had in it, because I find their credibility less than zero, and they're whining and their support of candidates who are anti-conservative through their history. If they ever endorsed a Republican, let me know. Please,
Ed,
let me know. No, well, wait a minute.
Take,
No, let
take the politics out.
no, well, no, you have to
I
leave it
live
in.
with an MTA member, so I guess I'll hold
you
back
have
on that
you
one.
have to you have to leave it in, because I find that their approach to society and education, the MTA, not the teachers, because this is like saying the steel workers endorse so and so,
Right,
The
yeah.
firemen endorse so. That doesn't mean, but
It's not 100%.
no, and especially a group
voted.
of teachers as intelligent, as thoughtful as them, to have, a union say whatever. So who knows even among the teachers what they feel.
Right.
But I felt some of what Al said is, I can understand about the graduation requirement, but not to hold people to testing when the education levels have declined consistently. And the same group of people who closed the schools raved all over the country, including the president of the National Teachers Union, who in Chicago and whatever, a big Biden and Obama supporter. They wrecked how many years of kids' lives over closing of a school for whatever reasons. So their credibility to me is less than zero. If an independent group had said, let's do this, I might look at it a little differently. But the minute I saw the MTA involved, I said, no way, Jose.
Well, I have an MTA in the house.
Well, again, but that,
Yes.
yeah,
exactly.
my daughter is very
but that's-
opinionated
Yeah, but that's the
Yeah.
problem, though.
on
So, yeah,
MCAS.
yeah,
Yeah.
My problem I have is, what's the alternative?
yes,
If we do away with MCAS,
yep,
and I'm not an MCAS fan,
Right.
but
yeah, still.
Well,
every town then sets their own bar as to what graduation requirements are?
no, because that is set through the Massachusetts Department of Education,
but
right?
again-
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah,
But wait a minute,
Massachusetts
the
Department of
Ed
Education.
sets minimum criteria to graduate?
No.
Correct.
well-
Yes. 100%. You have to take certain amount of English classes, certain
Yeah,
amount of
but you
math
don't have to-
classes.
But do you have to pass them?
Yes, of course you have to pass them.
Well,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
but,
I'm just
but
saying-
it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't.
I get it. And there are a couple arguments to your point is, are you teaching to the MCAS tests, or are you teaching to the student to get through and graduate, right?
But I don't think they're doing
So-
to anything of that
right.
point. So
If a student can't pass the MCAS, they're struggling academically anyways,
Yeah.
right? So why are we focused on this one test and teaching to that test when
Yeah.
let's gear that education process
Yeah.
to get them to succeed, to graduate,
New York-
right?
New York's-
and
yeah.
I say this to people too. I'm a mechanical engineer. I design things for a living. Guess what? They don't always work the first
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And I test it out, and something's wrong, and
Yeah.
I learn from it, and I go back
Yeah.
and I fix it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Chris,
MCAS is a one-shot deal.
That's a profound approach, saying
Yeah.
maybe MCAS wasn't the right solution.
Right.
But what are we proposing to replace it?
Nothing.
And I'm
Right.
not hearing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Crickets.
I'd be more inclined to support something if you
Yes.
said,
Right.
this isn't working, we should do that.
That's why
Right.
I
And it's against my everything that I say, because I always say, well, we're always reactive instead of proactive. This should be,
Yeah,
as you're
that-
saying, a more proactive
that's
approach.
why I question.
It's a reactive
I
approach.
question the.
And
I question
I'm
the
okay with it.
veracity of
Yeah.
it all.
But yeah.
Now, New York State had for years the Regents exam, if you're familiar with that. That was a hallmark for decades in New York State. You had to pass the Regents exam, which was a statewide test. Now, I don't know what New York is, given the way it's gone politically, it's probably down out the window. But to graduate and also to be graded, because the State University of New York system was a really great system, and it allowed kids to, I mean, there were schools all over the state, like the state colleges here, and allowed you, if you're in-state tuition, to go to school rather inexpensively. So we got MCAS. The other would be, let's see, let's do the Uber drivers and whatever. That's again, that's controversial because you're not sure. Some Uber drivers and Lyft drivers are for this, some aren't. And the other one I think is going to draw some attention is the audit the legislature, which should pass overwhelmingly.
And that amazes me, because how can you be against transparency?
The Massachusetts legislature apparently is one of the worst in the country for any kind of transparency because of the way it's run. And in a quote progressive state, I mean, for example, when a representative like Representative Murray, not to pick on him, but this is what they do, the House leadership offers you a couple of things for your district each year. Depending on the pecking order and where your power is, you get more money or less. Mm-hmm. So if someone's the chairman of Ways and Means Committee, he gets a hell of a lot of money. Someone who's a junior Republican would get less, someone who's a junior Democrat, and you present a list of projects and they'll approve 2 or 3 of them, and that's your thing to the district. And Brian's done stuff for Pheno Field, whatever. But it's all like a little patronage sort of system or whatever. But
But we
otherwise,
live on that system.
But otherwise, it's a closed thing that no one's aware of. No one knows what the. In fact, when they vote on the House and Senate budget, usually the members don't. It's presented that day to
But
vote on the
realistically,
package.
Ed, when Brian or Becca come on the show, one of the first questions I ask is, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, I mean, the grants for Pheno Field.
Yeah.
There's a lot of grants that we count on.
Yeah.
Because if the pot is got $100 in it, we're counting on Brian to get his scoop in there.
But the scoops vary in size depending on your influence. And the other would be the
Well, hold on. Let's
Yeah.
finish. I've always had the opinion that we don't pay our legislators enough money.
okay, well,
I'm sorry, when you're paying a base salary of $60-some thousand,
it's gotten up now to that.
well, now they add the stipends, which I really don't like.
But the thing is, they don't, even though they're supposedly full-time, they aren't, because the way the system is, 3 or 4 people control all the movement. So the 150 others and in the 35 others in the Senate, they're really like, they're supposed to be doing constituent services, but they have no real influence in formulating the budget or
But
anything.
if you
So
paid them,
what would it do? It wouldn't do a thing.
it'd make them and expect them to be full-time, really full-time. A
But-
lot
but-
of them
but-
have to keep their law
Yeah,
practices
but
going.
Al,
and-
but they.
That's a whole other problem, though.
Yeah, but Al, they'd be full-time, but the powers that be wouldn't matter that they're full-time because they don't have any power. The way the system is set up, it's in the hands of, and if you buck it, you're not gonna get.
Well, some of the
right,
reasons that the power is concentrated is that the chairman divvy out the stipends for different committees.
And the chairman are picked by the speaker, period.
So the speaker controls 20 grand of your
Yeah.
salary out of
Yeah.
80.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
you're gonna think twice
Yeah.
about going
Yeah.
against.
Exactly.
Yeah, well,
Right.
the fu-
If you look at someone like Brian, that's this long-standing member. Now all of a sudden Brian steps aside, and you have this brand new junior member.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
now the expectation towards Milford is, well, it's a junior member, so he's
Now
only
he's
going to
gonna get less, yes.
Yeah, he's getting 25 cents
Yeah.
out of that
Yeah.
$100
Yeah.
scoop.
Yeah,
Right?
and the last one is the one on tips, and it seems to be that most people in the restaurant industry, a lot of people say to vote no on that because they already get the $15 anyway. And then,
But what is the definition of tips? To ensure prompt service,
There you go.
right? So if you look at what it means, I mean, I lived in Paris
Yeah,
for a
but-
long time.
yeah, but that's-
where it was service compris. So 18% was built in
yes,
to
that's
your
part of the
tab.
salary, yes.
You know, so when you got your $100 bill for
Yeah.
dinner, it was 118.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What incentive? And anybody who's gone to Paris and to most of the restaurants, they don't see waiters and waitresses going out of their way to give you good service. Why? They get the money anyway.
Getting it anyways. Yep.
So I'm not sure how I feel about taking the incentive away.
Yeah, no, it's done by a group of people that don't understand the restaurant business. And the other thing is, never mind how stupid the bill is, and I'll just say it bluntly, is this question is, restaurants that are reeling from COVID, who barely survived, because
Right.
we haven't taken, never mind and this could be a whole show, the toll that COVID took on education and our children, but the COVID rules in society, which were never proven that they were needed. And hopefully we'll never get to that situation again, that what a disaster it was worldwide and here. It's an untold, never mind the loss of lives, which is in itself, it explains itself, but in everything, the number of restaurants, the number of people who lost their jobs because of it, and to put this on a restaurant again is just not, it's not.
Well,
not
we've
the
got
way.
a minute left. You want to bring anything else up, or?
No, I just think that, hey, we're waiting, we're looking at the polls and the trends as basically roughly 2 weeks before the election. It'll be a close election, but if you look at those swing states, as we said, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, on election night, those will, beside all the other electrical votes, electoral college votes that are already given out, that's what it's going
And
to
that's
be.
probably the part that bothers me the most, is that I'm going into this election saying, does my vote really matter? I know it does, but we're going to be blue.
Right.
Whether you vote Republican or
But you have
Democrat.
the other ballot questions and things of that
Yeah,
sort.
yeah, exactly.
And I can guarantee you that every vote matters.
Yes, yes.
I can
No,
guarantee that.
landslide Wilson.
So
Landslide Wilson.
I like
I'll be
that.
able to say that for a long, long time. So when you do say every vote
That's
matters,
that's
every
come up
vote
a couple
matters.
times on local questions where
Oh,
I've
yes.
had-
So
I thought that John Erickson's 18 vote margin was razor thin, and then Chris proved
yeah,
you can't get any thinner than a one vote.
I'm just glad I was on the positive side of that
Well,
closest election.
Part of it is no matter what the technology is, the compilation, the amalgamation of the results, as they're added together, there's always can be human error involved. So an addition error, a subtraction error,
Well, it'll
So,
be
yep.
interesting when we get back
Yep,
together,
right.
because by then there'll be no speculation.
and then we'll have a new president about to come in and be.
One way or another, we'll have new administration.
Yes,
Administration.
As always, to our 6 loyal viewers, thank you for joining. Whether you agree or disagree, I've always said I won't ask you to vote for any specific candidate, but I'll beg you to vote. There's nothing more important. And I joke saying I don't know if my vote means anything, but we've got a man here who won one of the most influential.
votes?
2 votes.
It was 2 votes?
2 votes.
Double the margin. I
not a
thought it was
landslide.
one.
Guess how many kids I have? 2 kids. So
Did they vote?
they're the ones voted for the first time in the town election. So
You're lucky.
So
there it
luckily
is.
you brought them along.
exactly.
Well, we don't know who they voted for.
So good night all. May God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight.
Bye-bye.